People talk about blizzards like they're loud, like howling wind and rattling windows, and the whole sky grinding its teeth. But the truth is, the quieter storms are the ones that get you. The ones that look soft, powdery, almost gentle. The ones that silence everything you rely on to sense what's coming. That's the kind of storm I was driving through the night I pulled into the Maple Ridge rest stop. I'd been holding my bladder for 2 hours because the heater in my car only worked when I kept moving, and stopping meant the cold would settle over me like a wet cloth. But the ache finally won. I swung into the rest stop, one of those older brick buildings half renovated on the outside and barely functional on the inside. Only one other car sat in the lot, a brown cross over dusted white, windows opaque with frost. The building's automatic door was stuck open an inch, letting a ribbon of snow creep across the tile. The vending machines hummed, casting a low blue glow down the hallway that led to the restrooms. Everything smelled faintly of old mop water and winter jackets. I went straight to the women's room. The lights flickered when they clicked on, a long, buzzing hesitation before steadying. 3 stalls, one out of order, taped off with yellowing caution tape that fluttered when the heater kicked on. I chose the middle stall, habit, neutral, harder for anyone to catch you off guard. I'd barely latched the door when I heard the entrance squeal open behind me. Heavy footsteps, slow, purposeful. The air shifted in that subtle way you feel when someone's watching before they even appear in your periphery. Boots, thick winter ones, stopped just outside my stall. I froze, mid-breath. The boots didn't face the mirror or the sinks. They were angled directly toward my door. The toes were scuffed, the rubber ridges packed with old snow, not the powdery kind from the current storm. I waited for them to move, for the person to say something, for any sound that would make this feel normal. Nothing. Just those boots, standing there. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. Enough that the sweat on my palms turned cold and my breathing got so shallow I could hear the soft rasp of my own throat. I cleared my voice. Someone's in here. No response. The boots didn't shift. Didn't flinch. I told myself maybe it was another woman waiting for the stall. Maybe she didn't hear me. I leaned slightly, trying to catch sight of the legs above the stall gap. The jeans were dark, thick, and too straight, not standing casually, rigid like someone bracing themselves. Another minute. 2. The boots stayed anchored, unmoving. The heater hummed behind the wall. A loose vent rattled. And still, those boots. Something crawled up the back of my spine, the kind of slow, creeping dread that doesn't spike, just grows roots. I reached into my pocket for my phone. No signal, which wasn't surprising that far out, but the battery indicator, previously half full, was suddenly blinking red. Then it flickered off entirely. The boots edged closer, a half step, barely perceptible, but enough that I saw the snow shake loose from the treads. I didn't even pull my pants up all the way before I braced my feet and unlocked the stall. The plan, if you could call it that, was simple. Shove the door hard, use surprise, run. I counted to 3 in my head. 1, 2, 3. I slammed the stall door outward. It hit nothing. No impact, no resistance. The entryway was empty. Empty. The boots were gone. I stumbled out, heart hammering so loud I almost didn't hear the door of the women's restroom squeak. A rush of cold air slid across the floor tiles, scattering a few flakes toward the sinks. And then I saw it. A single set of footprints. Fresh, pressed deep, leading from the doorway to the space directly in front of my stall. But none leading back out. I stared at that path of prints, throat tightening, mind scrambling to make sense of it. Maybe the person had backed out exactly in their own steps. Maybe I'd missed it. Maybe the snow had... The thought broke when the restroom lights flickered and the heater cut off sharply, plunging the room into a still, suffocating quiet. Then the door creaked again. Slowly, like someone pushing it with one finger. I backed up until my calves hit the row of sinks. My reflection shook in the cracked mirror above me. The door finished opening. The hallway beyond was empty. Except the brown crossover I'd seen earlier had moved. It was now parked right outside the door. Nose pointed at the exit like it was waiting for someone. I bolted out of the restroom, sprinting down the hall toward the entrance. The automatic door shuddered and tried to close, but the snow jammed against its track kept it stuck open just enough for me to slip through. The wind slapped me hard as I ran into the parking lot. My car was 30 feet away, maybe less, but as I reached for the handle, my headlights flicked on. I hadn't touched the remote. I hadn't unlocked the door. The interior light glowed, illuminating the back seat. Someone was sitting there, a silhouette, broad-shouldered, head slightly bowed. I staggered backward, slipping on the ice. The brown crossover's engine revved once, loud enough to echo across the empty lot. Its headlights flared on, blinding, aimed directly at me. I didn't think. I just ran. Not to my car, not to the building, to the tree line beyond the rest stop. Branches whipped at my face, snow clawed at my ankles, and the cold cut like wire around my lungs. I ducked behind a thick spruce and crouched until my legs screamed. For a moment, everything was still. Then car doors slammed. 2, maybe 3. Boots crunched on snow, multiple pairs this time. Too many to be a coincidence. I could hear them searching, the way their steps circled. The low whistle someone used, like calling a dog. At one point, the beams of 2 flashlights swept between the trees 5 feet from where I hid. I pressed a fist against my mouth to keep from making any sound at all. Eventually, after what felt like hours, the engine started. First the crossover, then another I hadn't seen arrive. Their taillights glowed red in the storm as they pulled out of the rest stop and vanished down the highway. I stayed hidden until dawn softened the horizon pink. When I finally crept back to the lot, both my car and the crossover were gone. Only tire tracks spiderwebbed across the snow, overlapping in a chaotic pattern that made it impossible to tell which vehicle had been where. Inside the women's restroom, only one thing remained. 2 wet boot prints, facing the middle stall, facing where I had been. No melting pattern, no trail out the door, just 2 prints, and the faintest smear on the mirror, like a gloved thumb had traced the arc of my reflection before I turned around. I drove the rest of the winter with the doors locked and the heat blasting, even when it made my eyes dry and sore, even when it made me dizzy, because once you've seen boots wait for you without a person attached to them in any sensible way, you stop caring about comfort. You care about distance, about doors, about never stopping anywhere you can't see the entire room at once. I still avoid rest stops in winter, especially the old ones, especially the ones that look empty. They're never as empty as they seem. I was 23 the winter I learned how easily you can mistake danger for help, especially when you're stranded on an empty highway with your pride frozen into your hair. My engine had died without ceremony. No sputter, no warning light, nothing. One second I was listening to a podcast about small town disappearances, and the next my dashboard dimmed like a curtain lowering. The steering went slack in my hands as the car coasted to the shoulder, rolling to a stop as though it were relieved to give up. The wind outside had teeth. It bit straight through the seams of my jacket the second I stepped out to pop the hood. I pretended I knew what I was looking for, but all I saw was a steaming hunk of metal and a belt that must have been important because its shredded remains looked freshly chewed. There was no signal, no cars, no buildings, just a white emptiness broken by the black slash of asphalt and the faint moan of the wind lifting snow like breath off a sleeping giant. So when I saw headlights crest the hill behind me, I nearly cried with relief. The shape that resolved out of the snow looked like a tow truck, but not the heavy-duty kind. More like a pickup with an aftermarket lift and a wrecker arm bolted onto the back. The headlights flickered in a way that reminded me of old fluorescent lights warming up. I told myself, good, help, stop thinking so much. The The truck slowed as it approached, then pulled in behind my car, hazards blinking a soft, sickly orange through the snowfall. The driver's door opened, and a man climbed out wearing a thick padded coat and work gloves, stiff with use. His breath fogged the air in a steady rhythm. He walked like someone accustomed to carrying heavy things. "Evening," he called. His voice was cheerful, but slightly off, like he was imitating cheerfulness he'd practiced earlier. "Looks like you're having a night." "Yeah," I said, laughing weakly. "Car died on me." "Well, you're lucky," he said. "I'm headed back from a pull near Red Oak. Can get you hooked up and into town for cheap. Roads are empty, so it'll be quick." He walked around the front of my car, shining a handheld flashlight under the hood. The beam jittered, flickered, then steadied. Too bright for a standard flashlight, too white. "Belt's gone," he said. "Probably shredded itself on a frozen pulley. Happens more than you'd think." I nodded, trying to act like I wasn't terrified of being stuck out there. Then he said, "Let me grab your plate number while I log this." Normal. Totally normal for a tow driver. Except he didn't walk to the plate. He didn't even glance at it. He just reached into his pocket and scribbled something onto a small pad. It looked like he already knew what to write. I shifted from one foot to the other. "Who are you with?" I asked. "Which company?" He looked up from the pad, just a second too long before speaking. "Independent," he said. "Work with the highway patrol sometimes. Overflow jobs, holidays get busy." Something about how he said independent made a small knot tighten behind my ribs. He started backing his truck closer to mine, lining up the wrecker. I walked behind it, mostly to stay visible, partly to reassure myself the plates were normal. They weren't. The front plate was from Missouri, the back from Nebraska, and both were attached with different screws, like he swapped them when he remembered. The snow muffled the sound of my breath quickening. I pretended to tie my boot while peeking at the stickers on the truck's door. Weathered letters spelled out, "Hank's 24-hour towing." But the font didn't match the ghost outline beneath it, some older lettering half sanded off, something like State Recovery Unit. I stood up, wiping my hands on my pants to hide the shaking. "How much did you say it had cost?" "Didn't," he said. He smiled like he was proud of the omission. "We'll work it out once we're in the truck." A prickling sensation crawled up the back of my neck. He climbed into his rig to adjust the controls. The truck rattled with a low, uneven growl, an engine trying to sound stronger than it was. I took 2 quiet steps backward toward the driver's side of my car. My keys were in my pocket. My car was dead, but it still locked. I don't think he noticed, until my door beeped when I opened it. He looked over his shoulder through his back window. His smile was gone now. "Hey," he called, voice sharper. "Where are you going?" "I left something in the glove box," I lied. "Just grabbing it." "You won't need anything. Come stand where I can see you." His tone changed, flattened. The practiced friendliness evaporated. I shut the car door without taking anything and stepped back out, but not closer to him. He leaned halfway out his window. "You got somebody coming?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied again. "They're 15 minutes out." He stared at me, no expression, no blinking. The truck engine rumbled loudly, drowning out the silence between us. Slowly, very slowly, he put the truck in reverse. Not to line up better, not to leave, to block me in. The wrecker arm swung slightly as he edged backward, positioning the rig so my car couldn't pull out, even if it came back to life. His eyes never left mine. That was when I realized the snow around my car wasn't untouched. There were fresh tracks on the passenger side, boot prints leading from the ditch, toward my car, then back to the ditch. He hadn't been driving by. He'd been walking, waiting for someone to stop. "I can call dispatch if you want," he said. "Let him know you're refusing service." His hand reached toward the dashboard radio, except the radio wasn't connected to anything. I could see the wires underneath, cut clean. Something inside me snapped from fear into motion. I bolted. Not down the road, too visible, not into the ditch. too deep. I sprinted along the driver's side of my car and launched myself into the seat, slamming the lock switch down a split second. Before he reached the door handle, he yanked, hard. The whole frame shuddered. "Open the door!" he barked. "Don't make this difficult." My fingers were numb as I jammed the key into the ignition, even though I knew it wouldn't turn over. The engine clicked. Once, twice, nothing. He stepped in front of the car, raising both hands like he was calming an animal. But his face? It was wrong. It wasn't angry. It was calculating. He kept glancing at the passenger side like he expected something or someone to arrive. I don't know why I did it. Maybe instinct, maybe idiocy. But I reached down, slammed the gear into neutral, and twisted the wheel off the shoulder. Gravity did what the engine couldn't. The car slid down the slight incline, tires skimming over packed snow. The tow driver lunged, grabbing the mirror, but lost his footing and vanished into the powder. I didn't stop, not even when the ditch bottomed out hard, jarring my spine. I kept rolling until the slope angled up again toward the road farther down. The car scraped, bounced, fought me, but it moved. Behind me, a flashlight beam tore across the snow, then another, deeper, lower than a person's hand. Something else was with him. My tires found purchase. The engine coughed once, miraculously, then roared to life like it had been waiting for the right kind of desperation. I shot back onto the road, fishtailing before regaining control. The tow truck didn't follow, but as I sped away, I saw something in my mirror. A second figure emerging from the ditch beside him, too tall, too thin, moving with a strange puppet-like gait. The tow truck's lights flicked off. Both figures stood motionless in the dark. When I reached the next town, I reported everything: plates, location, description. The officer on duty nodded politely and wrote it all down. But when I mentioned the mismatched plates, he paused. "Mismatched how?" he asked. I told him exactly what I'd seen. He shook his head. "That's impossible," he said. "Both plates you described were reported missing earlier this week, from 2 different counties." He slid the notepad away. "And neither one belonged to a tow truck." I used to think the scariest part of winter driving was losing control. Black ice, spinning out, that helpless, weightless feeling when the back of the car decides it's had enough of friction and tries out freedom. I was wrong. It's worse when someone else has control, when they're choosing how close you get to losing it. That night, it was supposed to be simple. A late drive back from my boyfriend's parents' place, 3 hours on the interstate, 1 thermos of gas station coffee between us. We'd done it a dozen times. His mom always begged us to stay just 1 more night, and we always swore we'd leave earlier next time, and we never did. The snow had started falling around 9, tiny, harmless flakes in the glow of the porch light as we loaded our bags. I remember thinking it looked almost pretty. I remember his mom pressing leftover cookies into my hands, with plastic gloves on, like we were heading into space instead of down I-80. "Stay in your lane," she said as we hugged goodbye. It was an old joke of hers, something she'd say every time she handed over Tupperware or advice. This time it felt heavier. People get stupid when they can't see the lines. I laughed it off. "We'll be fine, Deb. 3 hours, straight shot." It ended up taking 6, and I still don't feel like we ever really came back from it. The first hour was normal. Highway dry, sky clear, Aaron driving, me in the passenger seat with my feet tucked under me like a kid. We listened to a true crime podcast until the details got too vivid for the dark, then switched to music and sang off-key to stay awake. The second hour, the world narrowed. The forecast had mentioned light to moderate snow, but the storm that rolled in off the fields looked like someone dragging a white sheet across the sky. Visibility dropped in chunks. First we could see 4 or 5 car lengths, then 2, then 1. "Want me to take over?" I asked after a while. He shook his head, eyes locked on the hypnotic swirl in the beams. "Nah, I'm okay. Just don't let me drift." I put one hand lightly on his arm, grounding both of us. "Stay in your lane," I said, teasing. He smiled for half a second. That's when the first set of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. It was just a glow at first. Then it resolved into two orbs, too bright and too close, pushing through the curtain of snow like they'd been there the whole time, and we just hadn't noticed. "Where did they come from?" I asked. Aaron flicked his eyes to the mirror. "Guess someone's in a hurry." He eased to the right a little, signaling out of habit, even though there were no clear lanes anymore. The road was a single smeared strip of gray between two white shoulders. The headlights stayed glued to us. Same distance, no attempt to pass. "Okay, dude," Aaron muttered under his breath. "Chill." I watched the mirror. As the car behind us crept a bit closer, the shape of it took form. A big, dark SUV, one of those blocky ones with aftermarket lights on the roof. It had a roof box, too, sleek and black, beaded with snow. Its right headlight was dimmer than the left, just a little, enough to make the whole thing look lopsided, like it was squinting. Every time we slowed, it slowed. Every time we sped up a fraction, it matched us. There were no other cars, just us and the SUV cocooned in white. "Maybe they're following our tracks," I said, like, to stay on the road. "Then back off," Aaron said louder now. "You don't tail someone in this kind of weather." He tapped the brakes once. A quick, gentle flash. A polite way of saying you're too close. The SUV responded by surging forward, closing the gap until I could make out the pattern on its grille. Its brights flicked on, flooding our interior with cold blue-white light. "Okay," I said, pulse jumping. "Yeah," he snapped. "I see it." He flipped his mirror to night mode to cut the glare, then signaled left and eased our car toward what he guessed was the center lane. There were no visible stripes, just faint grooves where tires had passed earlier, now mostly filled in. The SUV drifted with us. Same position, same distance. I tried a joke that came out more brittle than I meant. "Maybe your mom sent a chaperone." He didn't laugh. At mile marker 228, one of the only things we could still spot through the storm, we saw the glow of a sign ahead, bleeding through the snow. "Rest area in 2 miles, I read. "There's an exit. We could duck off, let them go by." "Yeah," he said. "Good idea." He put on his blinker well before the ramp. The SUV's brights flicked off, then on again, as if it understood. As we turned onto the exit, the SUV did too. I felt it more than saw it, the way its weight shifted behind us, the way the lights swung in the mirror. The ramp was a gentle downhill curve. The snow was thicker there, less churned. Our tires slipped once, just slightly, enough to make my stomach drop. Behind us, the SUV hugged the outside of the curve, edging closer to our bumper. "At least there'll be people," I said. "Bathrooms, maybe a plow." But when we reached the lot, every space was a smooth, untouched mound. No cars, no tracks. The building was dark, only the emergency lights glowing a sickly yellow above the doors. Aaron circled the loop slowly. "Nope," he said. "This is worse. I'm getting back on." The SUV didn't park either. It followed us around the loop, staying just far enough back that we couldn't see the driver's face. When we merged onto the on-ramp again, it was glued behind us like it had been leashed. My throat felt dry, but my palms were slick. "This is weird, right? Like, not just me?" "Yeah," he said. "It's weird." He reached for his phone, handed it to me. "Call Highway Patrol. Tell them we're being harassed or something." I fumbled with the unlock, my fingers clumsy. "No signal." "Of course." "Here," he said. "Try yours." I had one bar. I dialed 911, listening to every ring like it was a mile marker. 911, what is your emergency?" The calm voice almost cracked me open right there. Hi, we're on I-80, eastbound. Somewhere past mile 230, I think. There's this SUV that's been following us for like 20 minutes, tailgating, flashing brights, matching our exits. We're in a blizzard. We're kind of freaking out." "Okay," the dispatcher said, voice smooth, practiced. I could hear typing in the background. I know it's scary, but this kind of thing is usually just impatience or road rage, especially in bad weather. No one likes being stuck behind someone else's taillights. Are they trying to run you off the road? I looked at the mirror. The SUV loomed behind us, an animal made of light and shadow. Not yet? They're just staying right on us. Okay, stay calm. Don't engage. Don't brake check them or anything. Just keep your speed steady. We've had a lot of weather-related calls tonight, and people are on edge. I'll notify troopers in your area to keep an eye out. In the meantime, can you make it to the next exit? There's a truck stop at exit 241. Well-lit, other people. Just head there. Her voice made it sound like we'd be pulling into a brightly lit oasis, grabbing coffee, laughing about how nervous we'd been. Like this was a misunderstanding solvable by fluorescent lights and other humans. Okay, I said. We'll go to the truck stop. Good. You're going to be fine, she said. Just stay in your lane and don't let them bait you. That phrase again. Stay in your lane. I thanked her and hung up. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. What did she say? Aaron asked. I repeated it. Tried to make it sound reassuring. They get calls like this all the time. It's just some jerk. He clenched his jaw. Then this jerk needs a hobby. The next few miles were an eternity. The storm had turned the world into a tunnel. Only what was in our headlights existed. Everything else was swallowed whole. The SUV stayed with us. Sometimes it drifted a little to the left, enough that I could see the passenger side mirror. Sometimes it eased back a car length, only to creep forward again until its grille nearly kissed our bumper. At mile marker 235, it bumped us. Just once. A light, unmistakable nudge. Our car rocked. Aaron swore, wrestling with the wheel as the tires skated on some invisible slick. Did they just... I started. Yeah, he snapped it. They did. He hit the hazards, then turned them off. Turned them on. A frantic Morse code only we could see. The SUV didn't respond. It just held steady. Okay, I said. New plan. Take the shoulder and slow way down. Make it annoying to follow us. They'll pass. Shoulder's probably worse, he muttered. But he did it. He eased right until the tires found the rumble strip, the growl vibrating through the chassis, and slowed to a crawl. The SUV slowed too. It did not pass. The brights came on again, so intense my pupils shrank. The inside of the car washed in blue-white. Something about the angle of the light, the way it hit the glass, made it feel like fingers on the back of my neck. Okay, I said. Never mind the plan. Forget the plan. We merged back toward the middle. The SUV stayed there, stubborn, glued. Maybe they think we're someone else, I said. Like, they're trying to mess with a friend and it's just the wrong car. Then they picked the wrong night, Aaron muttered. The miles crawled by. 237, 238. I started counting the green signs like prayers. At 239, the storm, already bad, somehow got worse. The wind shifted, blowing the snow sideways in sheets. The wipers couldn't keep up. Even the reflection of our own headlights off the road dimmed. We were driving inside a blank page. I leaned forward, peering into the whiteness. Can you see the road? Barely. We could pull over, I said. Just stop, let them go. And get rear-ended? His voice cracked. Hard pass. My phone buzzed in my lap. A text from an unknown number. Don't stop. Don't get off. My stomach turned to ice. I stared at it, heart pounding. Did you see that? See what? He asked. The text disappeared. Right in front of my eyes. 1 second it was there. The next my screen was back to the home page. No notification, no message thread, nothing. Nothing, I lied. Because if I said it out loud, it would be real. We never saw the sign for exit 241. We just saw the ghostly outline of an overpass appear in the whiteness, then vanish behind us. Either we missed it completely, or the storm had swallowed the sign. Or maybe there'd never been a truck stop there at all. The SUV was closer now, so close I could see the tiny chips on its headlight lens in the mirror, so close that its roof lights glowed halo bright around our car. "Where's the exit?" I whispered. "I don't know," Aaron said. "Why? We should have hit it by now. Maybe the mile markers are off." "They're not off," he snapped, then caught himself. Sorry, this is wrong." He was right. The numbers kept climbing. 242, 243, but no exits appeared. Just more white. "Maybe we passed it," I said. "Maybe the dispatcher meant another one." "Maybe," he said. The SUV bumped us again, harder this time. The car fishtailed, the back sliding toward the median. For a second, the world tilted sideways. Snow and darkness and headlights smeared into a single sickening blur. Aaron overcorrected, then corrected the correction, hands moving fast, jaw clenched so tight the muscles pulsed. "Okay," I said, voice shaking, trying to sound calm. "Okay, new plan. We get off at the very next exit, whatever it is. Take a ramp. Any ramp. Just somewhere we can stop where they can't hit us at 60. He nodded, eyes huge and unblinking. Yeah, okay." We watched the road for any sign of a ramp, an incline, a change in the shape of the darkness. At 247, there it was, a faint angled break in the median barrier, the hint of a ramp sign barely visible beneath icing snow. We couldn't read where it led, didn't care. "Take it," I said. He did. As soon as we turned, I felt a lurch in my gut, like the world had slipped. The ramp was narrower than it looked, steeper too. The snow here was deeper, piled up where plows hadn't reached. Our tires crunched through, fighting for grip. The SUV followed. Its lights swung wide behind us, the mass of it heavier, slower to turn. But it made the ramp. "Floor it," I said. "Get ahead of them. Find somewhere to—" Ahead of us, the ramp simply ended. No crossroad. No overpass intersection. Just a wall of snow where the plows had piled it across a blocked-off road. A big reflective, road-closed sign leaned half-buried in the drift, the edges rimed with ice. "Shit!" Aaron slammed the brakes. The car slid anyway, momentum carrying us forward. The ABS chattered underfoot. We plowed into the drift, the impact jarring every bone in my body. Snow exploded over the hood, washing the windshield in white. We stopped. Stuck. Behind us, the SUV slowed to a creeping crawl. Its lights loomed larger in the mirror, filling every inch of glass. The engine's rumble, I hadn't heard it before, but now I could feel it vibrating through the frame of our car. "What do we do?" I whispered. Aaron's hands fluttered toward the gear shift, then dropped. I can't. The SUV stopped 10 feet behind us, close enough that if we opened our doors, we'd step straight into its grill. Its bright shut off, then its engine. For a second, the silence was so complete that I could hear my own pulse. "Call 911 again," he said. "Tell them where we are. Road closed sign, unmarked exit, something." I tried. No signal now, not even a flicker. A shape moved inside the SUV. A door opened. "Okay," I said, breath shallow. "If they come up here, we don't roll the window down all the way. We don't unlock the doors. We say help is on the way. We make noise, flash the lights, whatever." "Okay," he echoed, but the figure that stepped out didn't come to my side, or his, or the front. They walked along the side of their SUV toward the back, disappearing from our view. "What are they doing?" I whispered. "I don't know." His hand closed over mine, damp and shaking. A tap, soft, deliberate, from beneath my feet. I froze. Another tap, this time from under Aaron's seat, like someone testing the floor pan with a knuckle. The metal thrummed under the soles of my boots. He went very still. "Did you feel that?" "Yes." Tap, 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 like a pattern, like code. I didn't want to look, but I found myself glancing down, half expecting to see fingers pressing up through the carpet. There was nothing. Just our muddy floor mats, the abandoned thermos rolling under the dash. Outside, the SUV's lights turned off completely. We were alone in the white, our car half buried, the only illumination coming from our own weak dome light and the faint reflected glow of snow. Tap. This time, it came from directly under the center console. "Nope," I said, voice breaking. "Nope, nope, nope." "What do we do?" Aaron whispered. "We get out," I said. "We run. I don't care where. Trees, a ditch. Anywhere that isn't sitting ducks in a tin can." He stared at the drift ahead. "Doors won't open on that side. Snow's up to the mirrors." "Then we go back," I said. "Toward them. Sideways. Whatever. At least we're moving." He swallowed hard. "Okay, on 3. We unbuckled in sync. The world narrowed to the sound of our breathing. 1, I said. 2. The tap came again, harder. This time it was answered by something outside. A scrape along the rear bumper. A slow drag. 3. We flung our doors open. The snow was higher than I thought. I stumbled, half falling into a waist-deep drift. The cold was a slap. Shocking. Almost electric. Aaron scrambled out on his side, swearing as snow filled his boots. "Go!" I shouted. "Go!" We didn't run toward the SUV. We ran perpendicular, plunging through the snowbank toward the faint suggestion of a guardrail. Our clothes soaked instantly. The wind knifed through every seam. Behind us, I heard a car's door slam shut, then another, then the soft crunch of footsteps. 2 sets, maybe 3. We hit the guardrail, slid over it on our bellies like kids escaping a yard, and tumbled down the embankment. The slope was steeper than it looked. We half slid, half rolled, crashing through brittle weeds and a thin crust of ice until we hit the flatter patch below. It was darker there. The highway sounds were muffled. The snow was less deep but more uneven, hiding dips and rocks. "Where?" Aaron gasped. "Trees," I said. "Keep going until you see trees. Or a culvert. Something." We ran. I kept expecting to see beams of light sweep across us, to hear shouts or engines, but there was nothing. Just the wind and our ragged breaths and the crunch of our feet. Eventually, a darker line resolved ahead. A snag of leafless brush and a shallow creek, half frozen. We slid down the bank and huddled under the lip. Crouched on ice that groaned under our weight, we waited. Up above, the faint rectangle of the road glowed where our headlights still shone. We couldn't see the SUV from there, just the halo of our beams against the snow. Minutes stretched into something longer. My toes went numb. My fingers ached. Aaron's teeth chattered so hard it sounded like a motor. "I think they're gone," he whispered eventually. "How would we know?" I whispered back. "We can't see the ramp." He was quiet for a long time. "We'll freeze if we stay here." He wasn't wrong. I was already shaking violently, my wet jeans stiffening into ice around my knees. "Okay," I said. "We go back up. But we don't walk straight to the road. We come up to the side, peak." We climbed slowly, every step feeling too loud. When we reached the top of the embankment, we stayed low, crawling the last few feet until we could see the ramp. Our car was still there, half buried, headlights on, spilling white across the drift. The SUV was gone, no taillights, no engine, no tracks. I blinked, thinking maybe the storm had filled them in, but the snow had smoothed everything into a blank sheet again. If there'd been a 3-ton vehicle there moments before, you couldn't tell. Our own tracks, our stumbling path away from the car, were already being erased. "How?" Aaron whispered. "Doesn't matter," I said, throat tight. "We need to get back in the car. Turn the heat on. Get warm." We slid down to our car, pushed against the doors until they woke the drift and creaked open. The interior was shockingly warm compared to outside, but still miserably cold. We slammed the doors, locked them on instinct. I kept expecting the tap to come again from beneath our feet. It didn't. The engine turned over on the second try. The heater wheezed, then coughed warm air. We sat there, breathing hard, watching the fog of our exhale fade. Maybe it was just some crazy person, Aaron said eventually, voice dull. Didn't like how we were driving, wanted to scare us. When we ran, they bailed, didn't want to get stuck too. Sure, I said. Sure, let's go with that. We backed out of the drift inch by inch, rocking the car until the tires caught. The ramp was narrower now, banked in by the wind. We crawled back up to the highway at a speed that felt insulting after what we'd just escaped. The interstate was still a tunnel, still white. But for the first time in an hour, there were no lights in our mirror. We made it to a motel near a tiny town whose name I don't remember. The clerk had a faded tattoo on his neck and deep, ropey scars across the backs of his hands, like he'd grabbed something that didn't want to be held. He barely looked up from his paperwork as we checked in, shivering and stammering about being chased. Whiteout does things to people, he said, sliding the keycard across the desk. Brings out the ones who like an advantage. What does that mean? I asked. He rubbed the scars absently, like they itched. Had a cousin who used to pulse people. That's what he called it. Find a car, get up on them in a storm, see how many times he could make their heart stop without actually touching them. Bump them now and then, keep them honest, got a high off the control. That's sick, Aaron said. Yeah. The clerk's mouth twisted. Last I heard, he went off the road near 247 chasing someone. They never found the other car. Or his. Snow took them both. Maybe he finally met his match. He shrugged. Point is, storms attract a certain type. We stared at him. The ramp we used, I said slowly. The one with the road closed sign. Does that go to anything? Another highway? A town? He shook his head. Old access road, washed out 3 summers ago. They blocked it off. You shouldn't have been able to get up there from the interstate. They were supposed to finish the barrier last year. A cold that had nothing to do with the weather slid down my spine. Someone did, I said. We used it. So did they. Then you got lucky. He slid the ledger away like he was done with the topic. Next time there's a whiteout, don't drive. People like your tailgater love nights like this. Less witnesses, slower reactions. We went to our room. We showered until the hot water ran out. We lay in bed and tried not to talk about it. But as I drifted off, one detail bothered me more than the bumps, more than the taps, more than the missing tracks. When we'd first seen the SUV in our mirror, its roof box had been beaded with snow. When we crawled back up to the road after running, when our headlights had swept the empty space where it had been, the air above our bumper was full of falling flakes. No disturbed snow, no gap, no sign that anything heavy had ever sat above our car, casting it in shadow, like it had never been there at all. Weeks later, when we finally got up the nerve to pull the dashcam footage from that night, we watched the chase again. The tunnel of white, the too close lights, the little bump that jerked the wheel, at the point where the SUV should have appeared as we took the ramp, big and dark behind us, following us into the dead end. The screen showed only one set of headlights. Ours. We checked every angle, every second. The SUV wasn't there. But the audio picked up something the mic in the car hadn't caught that night. Something faint, under the rumble of the engine and the scream of the wind. 3 soft taps, metal on metal, from somewhere just out of frame. We don't drive at night in winter anymore. We still see SUVs with one dim headlight and roof boxes covered in snow. But we let them pass, hearts stuttering. And sometimes, when the weather goes white and the world narrows, I think I see a shape in the mirror. Not a car, not a person, just a darker patch in the snow behind us, keeping pace, waiting for us to miss an exit. Every time I hear Deb's voice in my head, half a joke, half a plea. Stay in your lane, because there are things on that road that love it when you don't. I used to think CB radios were outdated, nostalgic relics for old-school truckers who didn't want to switch to smartphones. When I was a kid, my uncle had one in his semi, and the way voices crackled through it always felt haunted to me, like people speaking through snow. But until last winter, I never realized some warnings only travel on the frequencies we stopped listening to. It happened on the night my sister Mia and I were driving home from a canceled ski trip. The resort had lost power in the storm, stranding half the guests in the lodge, and anyone with a vehicle that could start was told to get off the mountain before the next system hit. We were already tired, already annoyed, already dreading the 6 hours of slow, icy highway ahead. The wind kept shoving the car sideways in little jerks. The snow wasn't drifting yet, but it was thick, the kind that layered instantly over the windshield no matter how high you cranked the wipers. "Should have stayed at the lodge," Mia muttered for the 10th time. "We couldn't," I said. "No power, no heat, pipes freezing. What were we supposed to do, sleep in the hallway?" "It'd still be warmer than this." A gust slapped the car and shoved us half a foot into the slush. I tightened my grip on the wheel. "Can we not argue while I'm keeping us alive?" She snorted but softened, pulling her blanket up to her chin. She always ran cold, even in summer. Her phone had no service. Mine flickered in and out, sometimes showing a single bar, sometimes nothing at all. The radio stations were pure static. It felt like we were driving through a world that wasn't connected to anything. At some point, I realized I'd been seeing the same set of tired orange taillights for miles, a semi ahead of us, maintaining a steady 45, slicing 2 visible tracks into the snow. Following him felt safer than forging ahead alone, so I kept a respectful distance. "Hope he knows where he's going," Mia said. "That's the one good thing about truckers," I replied. "They always know." The CB radio tucked under our dash crackled suddenly. We both jerked. We didn't even know it was plugged in. A man's voice came through, strained through static but intelligible. "Southbound sedan, blue or gray. Don't stay behind me." I looked at Mia. She looked at me. The semi's taillights were the only ones we'd seen for nearly an hour. The radio hissed, then the voice returned, sharper this time. "You hear me? Car behind? You gotta stop tailing. You're not safe back there." Mia reached for the CB like it might bite her. "Is he talking about us?" I swallowed. "I mean, probably." She pressed the talk button. Sir? We're just following your tracks. Visibility is really bad." The reply came immediately, cutting through static like a knife. "Don't follow my tracks." A long crackle, then quieter. "He's under one of the cars back there. Been jumping rigs. Looked like he was making for yours." My entire body went cold. Mia's eyes widened until I could see white all the way around. "What?" she whispered. I pressed the talk button myself. "Sir, what do you mean someone's under—" His voice sliced in, tense, urgent, terrified in a way older men rarely let themselves sound. "Check before you stop. Check before you get out. He crawls under 'em, cuts brake lines, slashes tires, or worse. I only caught him 'cause he tried mine first." The snow swallowed the silence between us. "Is he still under your truck?" Mia whispered. The CB hissed again as if breathing. Then, "No. Haven't seen him for 10 miles. Thought he bailed. Then I spotted your car showing the same drag marks." "Drag marks?" I didn't want to ask, but I did. "What marks?" A pause, a long one. "Front tires on your passenger side? Look behind you." I did. In the faint bluish glow of our headlights, twin grooves trailed in the snow behind our car, straight, shallow, like something heavy had been pulled along with us. My stomach dropped. "Nope," Mia whispered. "Nope, nope, nope." "Maybe it's nothing," I said, even though my voice didn't sound like mine. "Is there a car behind us?" the trucker asked. I checked the rear view. Nothing but white. "No," I said. "Just us." A sharp intake of breath came through the speaker. It wasn't reassuring. "Then he's on yours." Mia let out a sound halfway between a sob and a curse. I tightened my grip on the wheel until my knuckles throbbed. "What do we do?" The trucker lowered his voice. I could almost picture him leaning forward, elbow braced, eyes darting between mirrors. "Don't stop on the highway. Not in this weather." Drive to the next pull-off, big, open, well-lit. Somewhere I can pull beside you. We'll check under together. I don't see any exits, I said. My voice was shaking. There's one up ahead. About 2 miles. You won't see the sign till you're on top of it. Just keep straight, keep steady. Another burst of static then. And kid? Yeah? Don't hit the brakes hard. If he's moving around down there, you don't want to give him a reason to cut something faster. I felt sick. We drove. Very slowly, very carefully. The semi remained a dark silhouette ahead of us, its hazard lights blinking steady as a heartbeat. Twice I thought I saw a shadow shift in my passenger side mirror, something too low to be a person standing, too elongated to be a piece of debris. Mia curled in her seat, gripping her blanket like a lifeline. He can't actually be under us, she whispered. Right? That's insane. People hang on to trains, I muttered. Why not cars? Cars are smaller. Yeah, and easier to reach. Her breathing quickened. I tried to keep mine slow. 1 mile crawled by, then another. Finally, through the wall of white, I saw it, a glowing shape. A rest stop. Lights blazing, plows parked in rows. A gas station on the far side with flickering neon signs half buried in snow. The semi's blinker flashed. I followed. The pull-off opened into a wide oval. Perfect visibility. No corners where someone could hide. We rolled to a stop beside the truck. But the trucker didn't get out. Not yet. His voice came through the CB again, barely above a whisper. Don't get out until I do. Want to make sure nothing's moving under your chassis. We waited. The cab of his truck was dark except for the faint blue glow of a dash screen. Then the door opened. The man who climbed out looked older than his voice. Late 50s, maybe. Gray beard, heavy parka. But what stood out were the long, jagged scars across one wrist, disappearing under his sleeve. Not new, not decorative, earned. He approached my window slowly. I cracked it an inch. Is he really? Stay inside, he said, not harsh, not unkind, just absolute. He crouched beside our front bumper, squinting under his flashlight. A storm gust whipped snow across his coat, but he stayed steady. Then he lay flat on the pavement and slid himself halfway under our engine block. My heart climbed into my throat. 2 seconds. 5. 10. Then he scrambled back so fast he hit his own bumper. Lock your doors, he shouted. We slammed the locks. Mia screamed. He backed away from our car, breath fogging fast. What did you see? I yelled through the glass. He shook his head once sharply. Engine's hot. Snow's melted clear. Somebody's been under there long enough to carve out a pocket. His voice dropped. And they ain't there now. My entire spine went rigid. What does that mean? Mia whispered. The trucker turned, scanning the snowbanks, the gas station, the shadows near the plows. It means, he said quietly, he got off somewhere between the highway and here. A horrible thought twisted through me. Could he be inside one of the buildings? Maybe, the trucker said. Storm night like this. Folks prop doors open while they haul things. Easy to slip inside. Harder to see fresh tracks. Mia whimpered. The trucker put one gloved hand on my window. His expression softened, but the fear behind it didn't. You two got lucky. Don't drive any farther tonight. Stay where there's light, where there's people. But I gestured at the empty rest stop. There aren't people. There will be, he said. Storm's driving him off the road. More'll show up soon enough. He stepped back. I'll park beside you. Keep watch a while. He returned to his truck, climbed in, and killed his interior lights. For the next 2 hours, neither of us slept. Mia watched the gas station. I watched the snowbanks. Twice, a figure passed through the far side of the lot. Hood up, head down, too fast to identify. Once the CB crackled again, but no words came through. Just a faint scraping sound, metal on metal. Just before dawn, a line of cars began pulling into the lot. Stranded families, exhausted couples, 2 plows that parked like bouncers. When the sky turned the color of wet paper, the trucker finally knocked on our window. Sun's coming up, he said softly. "You're safe to go. Storm's breaking." We thanked him until our voices cracked. He waved it off, but before he walked away, he leaned closer, and he said something that still knots my stomach months later. "When you get your tires checked, have him look at the wheel wells. If he reached yours before I spotted him, you'll find scratches inside, patterned, like he was trying to get a grip." He tapped the roof of our car twice and walked off toward his semi, moving like a man who knew storms well enough not to trust their endings. We got the tires checked 3 days later. They did find scratches, patterned, inside the wheel wells, just above the axles, where no road debris could have reached. I used to think the worst part of winter driving was the boredom. Hours of the same white blur smearing past the windshield. The kind of hypnotic nothing that makes you forget where your hands are on the wheel. But that January night on the stretch of Highway 71 that cuts through the northern plains, I learned boredom is a luxury. You only get to be bored when nothing is watching you back. I was driving home from a late holiday visit with my dad. We'd stretched the goodbye longer than either of us meant to, mostly because neither one of us wanted to address the awkward, wobbling way we've acted around each other since Mom died. The cold had settled into the marrow of the truck by the time I pulled out of his driveway, the sort of cold that makes plastic brittle and your breath feel like it's frosting inside your lungs. By midnight, the road had emptied out completely. No headlights behind me. Nothing ahead of me except the way the snow caught the high beams and whirled in tight, frantic spirals like something trying to get in. The radio was just static. I don't know why, but that made me more nervous than seeing a deer would have. About 40 minutes past the last town I saw him, a man on the shoulder standing in that dead still way that reads wrong instantly, like he was posing instead of waiting. He had a reflective jacket on, the kind tow truck drivers wear. He wasn't waving, wasn't signaling distress, wasn't doing anything, just standing with one arm down and the other resting on something strapped across his chest. The beam of my headlights caught the yellow and silver stripes on his jacket just long enough to give me that guilt jolt, the one that says you can't just leave someone out here to die. I slowed. I don't know if I meant to stop. Maybe I just wanted to get a better look. The snow wasn't deep, just a dusting from the last hour, the kind that hides ice underneath but doesn't swallow your boots. When I rolled up next to him and hit the hazard lights, he took one step toward the truck. And that was what made me freeze, because the snow around him didn't shift, not even a little. There were no footprints behind him, not one, not even the soft dent where someone might have been standing for a while. He was surrounded by untouched powder. He walked up to the passenger door and tapped the glass with 2 knuckles. Calm, gentle, like he was knocking on a neighbor's window to ask if anyone had seen his dog. Against every instinct I had, I cracked the window 1/2 inch. "You headed south?" he asked. His voice was normal, completely normal, Midwestern, warm, almost apologetic, the kind of voice that made you feel rude for not trusting him. "Yeah," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "You need a ride?" He smiled, but not in a friendly way. More like he was indulging me. "No. But you should pull over up ahead. There's something you ought to see." My scalp tightened. Something about the way he said ought, like he knew me, like we'd already had this conversation somewhere. "What is it?" I asked. He tilted his head a little, like he was trying to make eye contact through the narrow window opening. "You won't believe me until you stop." That was the moment I noticed what he'd been resting his hand on. Not some tool, not a strap, something flatter, a rectangle, a clipboard, and I swear the paper on it fluttered even though there was no wind. "I should get going," I said, and started to roll the window up. He stepped back, nodding, and the smile stayed the same, almost patient, almost disappointed. "Suit yourself," he said. I put the truck in gear and drove, slowly at first, then faster than made sense for the icy road. I kept checking the mirrors. He didn't move, didn't step onto the road, didn't vanish dramatically. He just stood there, exactly as he'd been, until distance and snowfall erased him. It took me another 10 minutes before the adrenaline tunneled into something like panic. 10 full minutes to register what had bothered me most. The clipboard wasn't covered in snow. It should have been soaked. He should have been soaked. Standing and falling snow leaves a mark. Flakes on your shoulders, on your hair, at least melting on your boots. But he'd looked perfectly dry, like someone lifted him gently out of a warm car and set him there. Like he hadn't walked to that spot at all. Half an hour later, I saw something else in the road. A sedan, hazard lights blinking weakly through frost. It was angled at the shoulder, passenger door hanging wide open. I slowed again, because it looked like someone had just stepped out of it. That was when my stomach turned. Because about 10 feet beyond that car, lit by my headlights, was a clean rectangle of disturbed snow, like someone had set down a clipboard. And next to that indentation were a series of long, smooth drag marks leading toward the ditch. No footprints, no tire tracks, just something that had swept the snow aside in a straight line. I didn't stop. I wanted to. My brain screamed at me to, but something deep and instinctual, the part that still believed in warnings without explanations, wouldn't let my foot touch the brake. As I passed the abandoned sedan, the CB radio I kept in the glove box crackled to life. I hadn't used it in years. It wasn't even powered on. Through fuzzy static, a man's voice whispered, "Don't stop for him." Just once. Just that. Then silence so complete it made my ears ring. I drove the remaining 2 hours without looking in the mirrors once. Part of me thought I'd see the reflective jacket there. Part of me was sure that if I did look, the passenger seat beside me wouldn't be empty. I told myself, for months afterward, that stress can warp perception, that snow can hide tracks, that radios glitch, that tired minds invent patterns in the white, that I hadn't really seen a man standing where no one could have walked, that I hadn't heard a voice impossible to hear. But a week later, when the news reported the discovery of a sedan buried off Highway 71, with the driver missing and the passenger door open, I felt a strange, sinking recognition in the pit of my stomach, because they mentioned one detail that didn't make sense to investigators. A clipboard was found half frozen in a nearby drift, and on the paper under the ice was a list of names. Mine wasn't circled, but it was there. Winter highways don't just isolate us, they amplify intention. Out there, help and harm look the same until you're close enough to choose wrong. Thanks for listening through these 5 stories. If you learned anything, let it be this. The road remembers those who travel it in fear, and some warnings come from people who've survived more than they'll ever say aloud. Drive safe, keep your doors locked, and trust the ones who bother to radio a stranger, because not everyone under your car wants you to make it home.